Hello and welcome. You're listening to the Evolvepreneur Secrets Show for entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Brian Silverthorne, and it's my mission to help entrepreneurs make a difference and to also help them navigate the sometimes challenging worlds of startup, growth, or relaunch. And we're going to dig deep today with our guest to get you some great concepts and strategies to fast track your business. And our special guest today is Nick Sinanan, and Nick is known as the Global Charity Matchmaker, and he's also the Wall Street's leading peak performance strategist. So welcome to the show, Nick.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Brian.
Yeah, happy to have you here. Anxious to learn a little bit from you. So why don't we start off by you telling the folks where you're hanging out today?
Today I just came back from New York, so I'm based in Germany, and thanks to Zoom and all the technology, so I'm a proud dad of two wonderful children, and during the last, let's say, 3 years, I just skipped the part of delayed flights, etc. So I spend lots of time in front of the camera, using Zoom, spending my spare time with my kids. So I'm based in Germany, but I was going between New York and Germany back and forth because of business and, of course, charity. And I guess we will take a deep dive into this.
Yeah, well. Why don't we start there? Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you became the global matchmaker or charity matchmaker?
Let's take it this way. As we believe, there's no coincidence in life. So 26 years ago, I was told to be a lucky, let's say, patient when I woke up in hospital because I was on the way to prepare for the 96 Olympics as an athlete. And so I had a severe bike crash, and I was told by the physician I was lucky to survive, and if rehab would work out well, I could make it to go there as a spectator. And so that confused me a little bit. And then I realized after how lucky I was to really continue the path my parents put me onto is giving back. So this is what I'm doing for 26 years to help right now small charities basically to connect with media, to bring out their messaging and do good in the world. And yeah, this is definitely my calling, and it makes me very, very whole, let's say.
That's very, very interesting. So do you have a particular niche of types of charity that you work with, or is it kind of general?
It's never general because talking about a law of resonance. So meanwhile, people find me, especially, so I just mentioned I came back from New York. So it was a New York Marathon, and there are more than 500 charities, and it took me a year to set up interviews with most of them. And many of them, they do amazing things, but some of them, they don't even have a spokesperson. So it's difficult to attract the right donors if, Brian, you won't know about what they do. And so I realized this, talking about, let's say, pre-pandemic. So the last 3 years, it made it even harder to communicate the, let's say, the reason or the strongest why you do what you do the way you do it. And so I really nailed it down to figure out, okay, what's the biggest why? We had Simon Sinek 5 years ago talking about the why, but sometimes there is a stronger why behind the why. And so I did lots of interviews, and happy to have this New York Marathon back on international global level after the pandemic. And it still gives me chills when I just think about it. I was on the road all day, highlighting, spotlighting all the runners out there. And yeah, this is basically, let's go back to a Steve Jobs. It only makes sense. You can only connect the dots looking backwards. And so it's so much easier if you tell a story behind. It's New York Marathon is just way more than running 26.2 miles and some bridges and wind. And this year was hot. So it's amazing foundation to really tell a story why people are out there. and it's the biggest event on this planet. And I'm very, very happy to be able to connect or help connecting the dots.
So it was the marathon, is that used as some sort of a introduction to the charities, or how does that work specifically?
No, basically, as all top tier media, New York Marathon is the last sport event in the year, let's say. So besides, let's say, the FIFA World Cup in Qatar right now, but in, let's say, the events for pro and amateurs, so the New York Marathon is just a tag, let's say a tagline, and all top tier media, they cover something about what's going on there. And the charities normally are not necessarily connected to running or anything else, but it's an amazing platform because you have all medias coming together, and it's very, very easy to connect a top tier media with a charity. So this is why normally the charities out there over the last, let's say, 26 years have nothing to do with running, triathlon, etc., even though it was my background. But it's, of course, a very interesting, appealing story if you can connect. Okay, what do you think? So right now, Brian, you could sign up for a charity for 2023, and let's say we create, why would you go there? What would be the project you will support?
Okay, I understand.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
So the attraction of the marathon was the fact that all the media were
absolutely, yeah.
So if there's a charity that would need services like those that you offer that are going to get them out there in front of the public, so that there's a greater awareness, how do they find you?
Easiest thing right now is social media. So I shared lots and lots of just short clips on Instagram, for example. You can go via LinkedIn as well. But what we realized out there over the last, let's say, 3 years, the easiest point of entry is just Instagram. So a DM. And so I'm happy to provide the right platform and the right partners, because as soon as you're aligned, going back to the why behind the why, the first advice I always give is, as soon as you are crystal clear on your core values, you will, talking about the law of resonance, you will attract the right donors. Because many charities out there, they go like, wow, Nick, we have an amazing sponsor, but they might not be aligned with their core values.
Okay, understood.
So this is why I take a different approach. And over the last 26 years, learning from the most successful charities out there, what they do better than others was exactly this.
Excellent. So so how do they find you on Instagram? Just the use of your name, or do you have
it's my name. So my name is pretty unique. We are a large family in the Caribbean, but in Europe there is just 4 people which are part of my family. So it's very easy to find me. And thanks to Google, you will find me. And I'm sure you will put the show notes somewhere that people can DM.
Okay, sounds good. So this is a very unique and also an interesting and necessary form of entrepreneurism. So do you have any general thoughts that would help out an entrepreneur in any practice to get started, overcome obstacles, reach a goal, anything like that, to close this out?
Of course, because no matter if we talk about a nonprofit or, let's say, a startup, it's basically, we talk about attracting the right target audience. So first of all, who's my target audience? Coming back to my core values, do I attract the right audience, or do I try to serve anyone? So, and in the business world, going broad makes life way harder, because I was told it's so much easier if you yourself are part of your target audience. So it makes your communication way easier. Instead of, I would talk about, let's say, the best hacks for a mom with a newborn, like an example. And so, of course, starting with your core values, then the right messaging. And I'm a sports scientist by education, so we were trained to bring out very, very complex, scientifically based ideas and structures project. And people were afraid to really ask stupid questions because they were thinking, okay, this is way too scientifically over the top. And what I've learned, and it applies to business startup as well, if you're able to really bring it down that, let's say, a fifth grader would understand what you do, this makes your life absolute way easier. The, let's say, Apple approach. So Steve Jobs was a master in really nailing it down. If you remember what he communicated, because of the iPod, you had 1,000 songs in your pocket. This was tangible.
Yeah. So sticking with your core values and consistently communicating that. So that's an excellent message, like you say, for anybody that's in an entrepreneurial position or any business position for that matter. So I'm going to use that good advice as a wrap for another great guest episode of the Evolvepreneur Secrets Show for entrepreneurs. And just before you leave, if you liked it, please give us a 5-star review and maybe share it with a few friends. And if you want to make sure you can catch up on past episodes and not miss any future episodes, go to evolvepreneursecrets.show. And if you're an entrepreneur and you got a great idea in your head, let's get it out there today. Thanks for listening.